Today we're doing a full in-depth review on the Sony a6600. This is Sony's flagship APS-C or crop body camera, and as usual we'll be breaking down everything that's important, including the build and features, performance and value, and everything in between, including photo and video, so that by the time this video is done, you're going to have everything that you need to decide if this is right for you or not. Having said that, there's a lot to cover, so let's get started. The Sony a6600, Sony's flagship APS-C camera, and a modern marvel of technology in a tiny package. This makes it a great choice for intermediate as well as professional photographers, and although it's not a professional camera, in the right hands it can absolutely produce professional results. Here's some basic specs for you to get you going. And guys, if you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name's Stefan Malik. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking, news reviews, and tutorials, so if you do enjoy this content, if you like this video and you find it helpful, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Anyways, let's jump in. Let's look at a super quick unboxing and then the build of this camera. It's a tiny little box and there's not much in it. You get your typical paperwork, and then, you know what, nobody's got time for this. Here's what's in it. You got your charging cable, your strap, your battery, an eyepiece, and the camera. And that's pretty much it. As far as build is concerned, it's very well made. You can feel the differences, and it's like having all the good features of everything 6000 series, as well as some features from the A7 series, making this the most versatile APS-C yet. Improved ergonomics as well as weather sealing, and a few other features makes this camera feel a lot better put together for me. It's a great size and weight, and that much more portable than its big brother, the A7 III. We've also got a new inclusion of a headphone jack, which is great news for you video shooters. You can also charge your camera as well as transfer files via USB, which is an absolute must these days. I don't want to be swapping out my battery and my memory card like some kind of prehistoric savage. It's just not happening. Moving on, I did mention some upgrades in the ergonomics of this camera, but the reason why is even better than the actual ergonomics themselves. Sony's included a new Z-type battery into this camera, which is in my opinion probably one of the best things about this camera. Sony claims that it's 2.2 times better than the batteries that come with the other 6000 series battery. It also happens to be the batteries that are used in the A7 series. So if you are using this for a second camera or a B camera, it's fantastic to use the same batteries. You also have a few extra custom buttons now, which is great, letting you program and easily access whatever you use most often. They have removed the pop-up flash, which is a little bit surprising for me. My guess is to add to the weather sealing, but honestly for me anyways, it's not a big loss. Another factor for me choosing this camera was this amazing flip-up screen. This is just so convenient, and unlike my A7 III where you have to have an external screen looking at you all the time, this huge rig, it's just so small and so versatile, it's amazing. So as far as build goes, that's pretty much it for the big features here. And as usual, I will put my pros and cons and a big kind of summary at the end of this video for you guys. But if I were to rate this camera as a whole when it comes to build, it would have to be 4 solid stars. Next, let's talk about price and value. And to be honest, this is really one of the only aspects of this camera which I have a hard time with. The a6600 sells for $1,400 American dollars, not on sale. And this is just for the body, there's no kit lens included. This is quite pricey considering the 6400 is only $900. And on the other hand, you're really not that far away from stepping up to the full frame A7 III. I got my a6600 on sale, and I really don't think I would have bought it at full price. Keep in mind that the a6400 is missing some key features, including that Z-type battery, and probably what you're going to spend in batteries is going to be the difference between the two cameras right there. On the other hand, if you do decide to go up to the A7 III, it is a better camera in general, but you're missing that flip screen, and of course you'll be opening yourself up to spending a lot more money on lenses. So when it comes to value, there is value in here for me, just not at full price, and for that reason I give it 3.5 stars. Alright, it's while you're here, let's see how this thing performs. And let's dive right into the autofocus system. The A6600's autofocus system is incredibly impressive. It's packing 425 autofocus points, covering 84% of the image area. It's currently the world's fastest with an insane 0.02 second acquisition speed. It's got real-time tracking, as well as video eye autofocus for both human and animals. Sony's really stepped it up when it comes to autofocus here. And sure, that all sounds really good on paper, but what about real-world experience? Let's have a look. Here's a little focus test I did with the new 16-55 2.8. And yeah, it's quite good in my experience. It does have the odd hiccup from time to time, but it could be from growing pains, firmware, or anything really. No camera is perfect, but this little guy does very good in pretty much every situation. When it comes to face tracking in IAF and video, I found that you really needed some excellent light to really make it work properly. Here's an example of that. It tracks your face decently, but when it comes to the eye, not so much. Being an APS-C camera, it's just really not going to perform as well as you'd want it to compared to, say, the A7 III in low light. That's just one of its downsides, so if you want to make this camera work at its best, you're going to have fantastic light. And when you do find yourself in a situation with great light, well, it's awesome. And it actually shoots a lot faster than that. I just had to slow it down for effect. The image quality you get out of this camera is actually quite good, assuming you stick to great light. Here's some examples. Having a 1.5 times crop factor, this camera is going to be fantastic for things like sports and wildlife, but really, it's going to be an all-around great camera for all your needs. Even despite some user error there, it still manages to lock on and find the subject. Incredible. When it comes to video, like I was saying, in the right hands this camera can be absolutely amazing. It's got a whack of video settings, several different picture profiles to choose from, and filmmakers rejoice, no recording limit. Unfortunately, it does suffer a bit from rolling shutter as you see here, but for an all-around hybrid camera, this thing's fantastic when it comes to video. Most notably shooting 4K 30 and 1080 at 120. It also has one major feature that I haven't mentioned yet that really separates this thing from the rest of the 6000 series, and that's in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. This is going to be a big help when taking pictures at lower shutter speeds, as well as getting some nice stabilized video. Here's an example. Here's the IBIS off, and here it is on. It's going to be the same image stabilization you'll find in the Sony a7 III, and although it's not the industry's best, it is welcomed and does make quite a difference, as you can see here. Next, let's have a look at ISO performance so you can see what to expect in both photo and video. Let's start with video. Now this isn't the most scientific test ever, this is just me going through the range to show you kind of what to expect. And I'm not even using an ND filter here, so at the end it does get a bit hairy as I start to adjust the shutter speed to compensate. But as you can see, it actually handles it pretty well. And honestly, up to 12,800 is actually usable. It's a bit surprising. If you want to see a better test in this regard, check out my video on the a7 III versus the a6600, where I do a lot of comparisons between the two. Now let's see how it performs when it comes to photography. Now for me personally, ISO performance was one of the main factors that led me to upgrade from a crop sensor to a full frame. And this was quite some time ago now, and this is just one aspect that can really help you decide if you've outgrown your camera or not, when you found you've actually outgrown the capabilities of your camera's performance. Here I've added green, orange, and red, and this is typically what you want to kind of stay away from. Every camera has got a different ISO performance limit, and each photographer has their own standards for what they're willing to accept in terms of quality. I've marked here in color what I consider to be this camera's capability when it comes to ISO performance. But again, yours could be completely different. The a6600's native ISO caps out at 32,000. And just for fun, here's a comparison between the 6600 and the a7 III at some higher ISO ranges. All things considered, I think it performs pretty well. To keep this video reasonable, I can't obviously go over every single option that this camera has, but it does have some pretty amazing features available, including silent shooting, which is a great pro feature. There are a few things that I wish it had, like a newer sensor, as it does share the same sensor as the other 6000 series cameras at this point. But for the most part, it is a fantastic camera, worthy of the flagship title. Before we get into my pros and cons here, I wanted to rate this camera in terms of performance, and for an APS-C, it does perform well for what it is. For all the reasons that you've seen here, I give it 4 stars. So wrapping up, my overall feelings and thoughts on this camera are pretty good. I've liked my experience with it so far. It's nothing groundbreaking, and Sony really didn't push the envelope, more like listen to what people were asking for and put them into a medium range camera at a high price point. In this case, the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and like always, here's my personal thoughts on those. Rating this camera as a whole is kind of a tough one for me. The price is definitely a factor, but you can get it on sale, which does make a big difference in my opinion. The Z-type battery is going to save you from having to buy so many batteries if you were to buy something like the 6400. So that's a cost saver right there. If it was priced less right out of the gate, I would have given this thing 4.5 stars, but for me in the end it's a great all-around camera, just a little bit too pricey, and I give it 4 stars. If you're a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again, to consider, to definitely buy. And in this case, if you're looking for an APS-C camera specifically, and you're looking for the best if budget's really not that big of an issue, this is definitely a strong consider for you. So hopefully that's everything that you need to know about this guy, the A6600. If you want to pick it up, I'll leave affiliate links in the description. If you have a question or I missed something, make sure you throw it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like this video, if it helped you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, guys. Like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.